there, and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me today. If you haven't already subscribed, I invite you to do so. It keeps you notified about when I post new videos. I come at you Mondays and Fridays with new stuff, and you never know what I'm going to be doing. So today is kind of inspired by a lot of comments that I've gotten on a couple of recent videos where I mixed a custom color, which I do all the time. And I don't necessarily stop to think about it. It's just, I want this shade or I want this color. And I had a number of you saying, wow, I wouldn't have thought of doing that, or I wouldn't have thought of that mix. So for instance, creating like a duck egg blue color, or creating a softer, creamy kind of butter yellow. So things like that. And in which case, lots of you were requesting more color combinations. And so what I thought for the first one, let's see how this goes, see what you guys think of this, if you want more. But this is using the DIY paint because that's what I sell here in the shop, queenbeecreationshome.com. But I thought it will at least give you some inspiration, and I'm more than open to doing more of these videos. Certainly if you've got certain colors that you have in mind that, hey, how would you go about mixing this? I'll come up with it and I'll do that. What I thought today is I'd keep it fairly simple. I don't want to go into the color wheel and all that stuff. There's lots of videos out doing that. And I think for the most part, a lot of folks, their eyes glaze over or roll back in their head when you start talking color theory. So instead, I just want to give you an idea of some colors that you can try and where you can go with these. And I'm going to do simple mixes. So today I'm only going to mix two colors, meaning mix A and mix B, and this is what you get. There are other colors and shades that you can get, obviously, if you're mixing 3 or 4. But let's start simple. What I've done here is I've just taken a board, covered it in white paper, and then I have put little plastic acetates over top. Usually if I'm in the shop, if I have a customer come in and they want to do a commission piece, meaning they're going to be dropping off their own piece of furniture and they're looking for a particular color, a lot of times I don't have the exact color that they have in mind just sitting up on the shelf. You would never have enough space anywhere to house all the different shades and possibilities in the world, and that are going to suit each individual person. So you have to be prepared to kind of color match or mix. Sometimes people bring in a pillow, and so we play. And what I'll do is I'll just grab a piece of acetate. These are like for old overhead projectors. And I just put it over a piece of white paper. And the reason is that it's easier to mix and move the paint on plastic than it is on the paper directly. So I just keep a box of these on hand, toss it over top of a piece of paper, and I can color mix right there. So I've just kind of glued some together so we have a little bit more space. But today, rather than going for specific colors like this is how you get peach or this is how you get terracotta, or I'm open to doing that, I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea with some shades that you might not think of. So in particular, because you don't have to have every color that DIY makes to have a lot of colors available to you, right? So this is mint chip, and this is a favorite of a lot of people. So let's do it this way. Let me take my mint chip, and I want to have a fair bit. And I just always use my finger for this, but I just have a cloth handy. I clean off a finger and I continue on. Y'all could do it with different paintbrushes, but it's easier and faster to clean up my hands than it is paintbrushes, and I hate cleaning. So there you go. So what I want to show you is mint chip done with Boho Blue or with Monet Green. And then we're gonna do the same combination with, starting with a different color. So if we take Monet's Garden, I think I called it Monet Green, but it is green, so you're with me. So if we take Monet's Garden, and here we end up with doing this kind of almost in like a 50-50 ratio when we do it this way, right? Here, we're just starting to mix in. This is where we go. And just to remind you, this is the green that we started with. So look at that beautiful green that you get with taking that Monet's Garden and mixing it just with some of that mint chip. It goes into that beautiful, beautiful green shade. Now you can lighten this up, take it into a much softer, but just increasing the amount of the mint chip that you use, right? So if you add more mint chip to that, and let me get a little bit more on my palette anyway, so that when I add the Boho Blue, I'm not adding a lot of the green. But if we take a bunch more of that mint chip, we lighten it even further and soften it out. Look at what a beautiful color that is. So you can see already that you could in essence two-tone a dresser by starting out by adding just a bit of the Monet's Garden to some of your mint chip, getting that light tone, painting it all over, and then darkening it, adding more of the Monet's Garden to the paint mix that you already have, darkening it out and adding that darker tone. Maybe you're stenciling over top, or you're doing some accent features on it. You've got a lot of play. Now the other combination that I love with mint chip is Boho Blue, so Bohemian Blue. Now this is kind of like a deep teal. It's got green tones in it already, and it is wonderful. So that's the color here, that dark blue, and let me get some on here that we start mixing in. Look at the blue we've gotten. And because we started with the mint chip, look at the blue and the green that we created together. That's also a great combination, using those in two-toning, because it's now got a value, a color value that kind of works with it. But those become two of my really favorite colors, that mix, right? Just taking, sometimes like the Bohemian Blue on its own, way too dark. The Monet's Garden, way too dark. So if you're somebody that you go into some of those softer tones, think about how many fabrics and how many homes have some of these tones in them. Perfectly within your reach with the existing DIY colors. Now I want to give you an idea of what happens when we just start with a different base color. So now we're starting with a really much bolder color than the mint chip. And let's get a bunch of Queen Bee out here, right? So we've got that beautiful Queen Bee tone, which is quite kind of like that mustard yellow, so very distinctive. And I will say there's a lot of people that color freaks out, right? That it's just too much for them, it's too bold for them, and so they're not sure how they would ever use it, apart from maybe blending it in a little bit on a piece. So again, we're taking that deep green, that Monet's Garden, this green up here, and we mix it in. And look at that beautiful green that we get as a result, right? That we've yellowed it up in essence, and it just creates that beautiful, beautiful kind of lichen green. Now, let's take the Boho Blue, and let me show you what this does. This also goes into a green, because it plays off on that green tone that's in that Boho Blue, and we can we can darken that out a little bit, right? By adding a little bit more of that blue into it and creating a little bit more of a blue depth and cast to it. Look how gorgeous those two blues are. And again, how well they play together, because you've got that yellow, that consistent yellow base with both of them. And, you know, starting with, you know, whether we're starting with that mint chip or we're starting with that queen bee, it creates a kind of a familiar tone that helps those colors coordinate. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go into, okay, that's yucky. I have another cloth here. Let's go into a soft tone for you. Let's go into Petticoat Pink, because again, a lot of people look at the Petticoat Pink and they think, okay, I don't use pink a lot. But what about pink as a mixing color, right? Certainly, any of these you could soften by adding white to them, right? You could end up with, you know, more of a pastel color because you've coordinated your white with it. But what about adding different colors? Where does that take you with it, right? That's where some of the magic happens. So, Prom Queen. It's just pale, light blue. There we go. I tried to loosen my jars before coming on with you guys because I always forget. So we've got this pale light blue that we're mixing with our pink. Let's see if I got enough pink in there. I want a little bit more pink. Different finger. There we go. Okay, so what we end up with is this beautiful, soft kind of, you know, lavender shade. We have in the DIY line, we have, oh, what's the soft kind of mauve color called? I don't know. I keep thinking Petticoat Pink and it's not, but it's something similar. But this takes it into a completely different color tone. You can see that it's definitely got a little bit of a soft purple happening, you know, because you've got the like red and blue make purple. But here we're working on just that really soft, beautiful kind of, a little bit more of a lavender kind of shade, maybe a soft violet. Now, what about our pink mixed with cherry picked? Now, cherry picked is like a rich kind of burgundy kind of color, just like a Bing cherry. You don't need a lot of this, right? So here we're adding that shade to this. But look at that beautiful color that the two of those make. And again, look at those two together. How that would work on a piece together, because you're starting with that same base color, which is that Petticoat Pink. So you can see how much we have changed out those colors just by the base that we started with. But this becomes kind of that light sort of, I don't know where I would call that. You know, if this is kind of like that dark burgundy cherry sort of color, where that takes you. But both of those end up looking really nice together, and they tend to be colors that people maybe wouldn't stop to think of. So, you know, you're looking kind of going from 3 existing colors, right? You can end up with more colors and more shades ever. You don't need to have tons of different paints to be able to get some of the colors that you need. And if you've got some of just the basics that really work well together, these start taking us into more of the pastels. So let's go into, I know that Old 57 is one of people's favorite colors. So this is the last one that I'll do today, just because I want to hear from you guys and whether or not this is even helpful or of interest if you want to play with colors. But we've got that beautiful light turquoise color, that Old 57. So let's take it out with a green and a blue. And rather than doing Monet's Garden and Boho Blue, for this, I'm gonna use Fancy Farm Girl. Gypsy Green is also a great choice. I find them very similar in a lot of respects. So this is our Fancy Farm Girl. And let's add that. And look at that shade. It just makes this wonderfully soft sort of turquoisey green, kind of works with, again, different color tones if you were doing a lot of leaves or garden painting, or if you were looking for something that was sort of that mid-tone between the two, and then allows you to take it in either direction, right? You can go in either a blue or green with that because it's got the mix of both in the undertones. This is Hay Sailor. This is kind of a little bit of a navy blue. I mean, it really, like, if you take the Hay Sailor and you're thinking, oh, it's not as dark a navy, you add a bit of black to it, right? It's going to darken it right out. So that's the navy. And it does not have that underlying green tone that the Bohemian Blue does. The Bohemian Blue has that green underlying tone that takes it into the teals, as opposed to this being in the blues. But look at this. With our Old 57. Look at that lovely kind of mid-tone, almost slightly Mediterranean looking blue. But again, look at how well the two of those colors coordinate with one another. How well, you know, that green and that blue really would be able to live together really well on a piece by themselves. And that's really where, when we are starting with a consistent colored base, it helps to pull the colors together. Now, this is where it becomes just a lot of fun for you create a board like this and to be able to mix things up. Now, what you can do is, you know, as I did a dot here, take a plain piece of paper and, you know, take a dot of your starting colors, right? And just say, okay, that's what this is, that's what this is, and looking for a clean finger. And this is what it gave me. This is, you know, so you can do this and create your own color mixing charts and put roughly what the formula was, right? Was it half and half? Was it 2/3, 1/3? So when I'm doing this for a client, I will be a little bit more aware of how much paint roughly I am dabbing. So if I was doing this for a client, I would be looking, saying, okay, I've got one dab of the blue, sunken lid, and I have, in essence, one dab of the green. And then when I'm mixing it, we see what that color looks like. And then if we're saying, no, we need it lighter, then I write on here 50-50. And then the next one, I'll do, and I'll say that's roughly 2 parts of the blue to 1 part of the green. A little bit of a green swirl. But you can see that it starts to lighten up and go in more of the blue tone. And we start playing that way. And usually I'll always have the white out as well, because a lot of times they want it lighter, meaning whiter, not bluer. So then sometimes I will add just a bit of white to the one side and be able to see if that's taking us into that color family. And that's how you start to play with these. You are going to come up with combinations that you love. You're going to come up with combinations going, oh my gosh, that is a really ugly color. Because then you'll see that there's certain colors that, you know what, they just don't really belong together. But when you do that, if they don't mix well together to create a nice color, they probably don't work well together on a piece. Right? So if I mixed Petticoat Pink and the Cherry Pick together, and this was a really ugly color, odds are these 2 colors just don't look good together anyway. And doing that sometimes teaches you about combinations that if you had done them on a piece of furniture maybe, and you're looking at the piece of furniture going, oh my gosh, I don't know what's wrong with it, but it just doesn't resonate. It just doesn't sing. I just don't love it. Mix the 2 colors together and see if you like the color that comes out. If you don't, that's what's happening with your eye. You know, your eye is picking up those colors, your brain is kind of mixing them, and it's not liking the outcome. So sometimes that's what gives you an idea of whether those colors would work. So if you're debating before you start painting a piece, mix them together, see if you like the outcome color. If you do, you're probably cool with using them on your piece. If you don't, then it's probably not a mix that when the piece is finished that you're ever going to love. I hope this helped. I can certainly, I mean, there's tons of these kinds of color combinations to be able to play with. And certainly as well, if you're thinking about, oh, there's certain colors that I'd like to see or I'd like to get, let me know and we can do another demo from a how to get this color, how to get that color. We could do that as well. Or if you're looking kind of going, I really love this color, what would be combinations that would go with it? And we can do some mixing. I'm open to anything, guys, really. I'm here for you. I'm here to serve. I just thought maybe this would be helpful to get an idea of how I play with mixing colors. An easy way to be able to do it, certainly if you're looking at doing commission work for other folks, a way to be able to help them be able to see what the finished color could be or would be, and open up the lines, because otherwise they're just going to stare at the paint colors on your shelf, not see the color that they're after, and go elsewhere, in which case you've got a world of options and possibilities for them. You just need to understand the kind of shade. What also happens is if they say, I'm looking for a sage, this helps you be able to determine the sage in their head versus the sage in yours. We label things differently. Our eye sees color differently. My youngest son is totally color deficient, which means there is not one color in the world that he sees the same as us. Every color is completely different. He's not color blind, he's color deficient, which means his whole world, his whole perspective is completely different. I wish I had a way of being able to see what he sees just so I would understand. But he'll label colors the way we label them, but what he sees is nothing like what we see. But it's the same with a lot of our clients too. They're not seeing what we're seeing. This kind of thing helps us be able to narrow it down, be able to see, understand shading, how that's working for them, how that isn't. But even for us, it's a way of extending the paints that you own, the paints that you have, getting more of the colors that you love from the colors you have. And it's super fun. It's super fun. Let me know if this helped you in any way. Love to hear from you always, guys. I'm open to doing more of this for you if you are looking for this kind of information. I don't want to do it if you're not. So, you know, I'd rather put out videos that you want to see than videos you don't. So let me know. Love you all. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, take care.